We now move on to our next panel discussion, a rather interesting one about the tourism industry, the growth engine of Tamil Nadu. Our final panelist rounding out the panel is Dr. Prithvi Mohandas, Managing Director of MIOT International. Dr. Prithvi Mohandas has shown that he is someone who leads from the front. Whether it was the 2015 Chennai floods or COVID in 2020, MIOT Hospital has always set an example, putting patients first. Presently, Dr. Prithvi divides his time between training young orthopedic surgeons in hip surgery and his administrative duties as Managing Director, MIOT Hospital, a 1,000-bedded multi-specialty hospital. Welcome, Doctor. Request you to please join us on stage. Zubeda, I leave the panel in your able hands.
Thank you. Welcome on board, panelists. Moving on a little bit, let's talk a little bit about medical and wellness tourism. Dr. Prithvi, Tamil Nadu estimates indicate that about 40% of all of the medical tourism comes to Tamil Nadu. Tell us a little bit about the medical tourism landscape over here and what you think can be improved upon.
I think that the huge advantage that India has is that India is producing high-quality health professionals. And the huge advantage that South India has is that South India is producing around 60% of the country's workforce. In fact, we are producing huge numbers, not just of doctors, but also of nurses and allied health workers. So that's a huge advantage for us because we have the talent to deal with patients who need health care. In terms of medical tourism, it is still the countries around India that are looking for a less expensive option that are principally choosing South India. They know that the level of care is excellent because a lot of work is published. They can access this work on the internet. They can access the fact that there are a lot of thought leaders in several areas in healthcare in South India. And also they find that they can get very high quality, cutting edge treatments at a very affordable rate. And that is principally the reason why they choose South India. So you will see that the big ticket, as we call them, customers from the Middle East will rarely come to South India. And we have a lot to learn from places like South Korea and Thailand, how to attract these big ticket clients, how to make the facility for visas easier, how to make immigration easier, and how to make the whole experience slightly less painless. And that will probably attract even more medical tourism.
Mr. Kota spoke a little while earlier about the need for branding, Dr. Prithvi. Do you think that Tamil Nadu needs to brand itself as a medical tourism destination? Is that something that needs to be worked upon?
I don't think so. I think with regard to healthcare, your name is principally made by what your own country thinks of you. And if you look at Tamil Nadu is the #1 destination for anybody from the Northeast or anywhere else. The trust that people have in Tamil Nadu in terms of healthcare is unparalleled. So really, there's no necessity to overdo the fact that we are capable. But the whole problem really with Tamil Nadu in particular is the lack also of connectivity. You don't have direct flights from Maldives, you don't have direct flights from Seychelles, you don't have direct flights from Mauritius as yet. You don't have direct flights from so many of the neighboring countries. That's a huge stumbling block. Obviously, the huge advantage of a Delhi and a Bombay is that the ambassadorial scenario and the business development scenario of that country, that is your neighbor, especially East Africa, etc., and certain GCC countries are sitting in Delhi and Bombay, so they're able to attract clients better. Also, they have direct flights more frequently. So especially patients who are looking at either diseases that are complex, they prefer a direct flight, or patients who are looking at a slightly cheaper option, they would also prefer a scenario where there's a direct flight. So these are the other challenges that Tamil Nadu is facing.
Dr. Prithvi, talk to us a little bit about the potential of Tier 2 towns in Tamil Nadu. Is there a potential there for medical tourism as well? We know that Chennai is there. We have Vellore because of, one institution, and we have Coimbatore also, which is developing. What about other cities?
Well, I think that they're showing great promise. There are great hospitals being built in other cities like Trichy and Nagarkoil, obviously Madurai. There's a lot of investment, a lot of people who've returned to their hometown and developed some excellent services. And I think, obviously, when people talk about medical tourism in the emerging cities, they have to embrace some sort of unique scenario that they're offering. So either they'll have to talk about a particular disease or a particular, for want of a better word, product in terms of technology. So for example, if you take something that's commonly spoken about, everybody knows about Parkinson's disease and how it's treated. And we know that there are emerging cities in Tamil Nadu that offer some amazing treatments. And these are the things that they could put into the social media, or they could have a hub and spoke scenario where they're able to talk about these things in the neighboring geographies and attract patients. I mean, patients are always looking for, success stories. They're looking for, a very, very complicated treatment at a very, very accessible cost. And so these are the things, they have to work on. Obviously, the huge issue that emerging cities have is catering to the non-medical needs of the patient. So that is something that they have to work on. And this is something that, because of the healthcare industry's good relationship, especially in bigger cities with the hospitality industry, they're able to sort of recognize this. How do I receive them at the airport? How do I give them food that they like? How do I connect them with people who can speak their language? All that. And all that is very important, I think, for these emerging cities.
Dr. Prithvi, you had earlier mentioned some lessons to be learned. You mentioned South Korea and Thailand, for instance, and the other panelists have talked about lessons to be learned from our own neighboring state. Tell us a little bit about that. What is the kind of thing that we can incorporate?
Well, I think that our government is making enormous strides, because I've been looking at, as you call it, medical tourism from 2007 onwards. Myself, because that was the first thing that was given to me to look at on the admin side. And I think that our government has made enormous strides, especially with the External Affairs Ministry and our various ambassadorial staff who sit in various countries. I mean, it's like chalk and cheese compared to how it used to be. The sort of confidence they radiate, the sort of capacity they have about putting our healthcare on a particular platform, the sort of information, powerful information they have about the intricacies of healthcare is amazing. So they're doing a great job there. The problem that we have is on the ground, is the scenario in countries that attract medical tourism, big ticket medical tourism, is to give the medical tourists a separate pathway. So yes, now finally the visas are becoming easier. It's possible to get an e-medical visa. But unfortunately, if you get an e-something else visa, you can't convert it to a medical visa. So if you come here, even from a neighbor like Bangladesh, if you come here on an attendant visa instead of a medical visa, if you're a medical attendant, again, you have to wait to convert. So these are the things that they probably will need to work upon. But the biggest thing they need to work upon is the first impression. As soon as you arrive as a patient, if you are sitting in the same queue as everybody else and hanging around with your cancer or your heart attack or your Parkinson's or your, loss of all your faculties, and your loved one is seeing that you're sitting over there in that queue forever, automatically your sort of grade drops dramatically. So that is very important, because by nature, we're an amazingly welcoming country. Look at the number of people who've invaded us. We're an amazing country that has great hospitality, and it is important, especially if someone is sick, that you put them right front and center. I mean, look at our villages function. If you are hungry, you can go to someone's house and they'll feed you. And, you know, that's how Indians are. So it is regretful that this is not put into the first port of call. And if it is there, then, you know, then we will overtake everybody else. I mean, there was a time when every single Indian who did medicine thought that he had to leave India to become a great medical professional. There was a time when every single Indian patient who had money went overseas for treatment. Look at our previous chief ministers, etc., etc. But today, everybody is treated here. Today, everybody wants to work here. And the only thing one of the few things we need is to make sure that that first impression blows the client and their family away.
Dr. Prithvi, would you say skilling is something that that the hospital sector also needs?
I think around 15 years ago, there was dependence on Kerala for nurses, and I'm sure a lot of people who are of my vintage, if they had gone to hospital when they were in school, they have most of the time come across nurses from Kerala. It is pleasantly surprising that that has completely changed. I mean, the number of nurses that this state is producing is ridiculous. And the number of health professionals it's producing is staggering. But the huge problem that Tamil Nadu has is making sure that there are enough in the places that they should be. Of course, you know, the big corporate hospitals in cities and the bigger hospitals in the emerging cities are able to occasionally attract them. Eventually what will happen is that there will be a problem because they're all wanting high salaries. No, there is really no shortage at all of skill level. And as we were talking earlier before we came up here, there is also a huge need all over the world for allied health workers and even for doctors, because the number of health professionals who are willing to work long hours in other countries is very low. So India might not only have a huge capacity for health tourism, but also, especially Tamil Nadu, might have a huge scenario where we are able to look after the health of the world, not only here, but also there. It's a fascinating prospect to look forward to. I mean, imagine going to Mayo Clinic and finding that your nurse is called Sundari or something. I mean, that's what is going to happen.
Dr. Prithvi, is this a focus area for hospitals as well?
It's an incredible area, and surprisingly in healthcare, sustainability cuts costs. So it is a very, very important lesson that we learned from the West, especially when there was a huge outbreak in the West of human form of BSE. So what happened in the West was, for some bizarre reason, they started feeding herbivore animals carnivorous food. It's ridiculous, but it's true, because it was cheaper than having them go and graze. And as a result of that, the BSE virus got into the food chain of human beings. And something that was extremely rare, which only happened in cannibals in historic times, entered into the human disease chain, and as a result of which the Western world went absolutely mad. Every single thing that went to a human being had to be immediately discarded. It was ridiculous. It's like saying that you take a car for a drive, and once you've driven it, you melt your wheels and put new wheels for the next drive. It was based on no logic. It was just based on a political decision because they were scared that it would harm their, their sort of success in the forthcoming election. And it happened all over the world. At the same time, in India, which continues to be a hotbed of cardiac disease, Indian scientists came up with a landmark paper that there is no difference in the outcome and in the sterility if you use a balloon 4 or 5 times. So if you're doing a patient and you're stenting the patient, You don't have to use the balloon once and then throw it off and then open a new balloon. And this resulted in huge cost saving for the Indian patient. And this has been duplicated in various procedures by Indian scientists and is one of the real reasons why cost of healthcare in India is remarkably less expensive than the cost of healthcare. I mean, to replace your hip in the US costs 70,000 rupees because they throw everything. $70,000. Can you believe it? And here it costs $2,000 because they're not throwing everything and using it once on the same person. So it is amazing how our country is. The problem for our country is if we start aping the West, we will go back to their problems. We've always, in the past, been 30 years behind them, but now that we're overtaking them, we should not start making their mistakes. So you're absolutely right. It is a funny paradox that in hospitality, if you're going to have to, put your solar panels or et cetera, you've got to invest a lot in the beginning and then see the returns very much down the end. But with us, if you have protocols in place, it's a huge reduction and makes you competitive.
Thank you very much, panelists, for this really interesting discussion. I think we've run out of time now.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. We'll have our moderator present a token of our appreciation for that wonderful session. Can we have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? I think everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.